Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
The theory of the Big Bang. The cast signet contracts with a clause that no one discloses Cesaro. It prevents them from disclosing what actually took place on set. However, in 2019 something was released from court documents. Startling. The female celebrities were in danger of dying. Rape, house invasions, and threats. Danger. One actress was required to sign documents that she might not be there when she wakes up. Another painkiller that was discreetly fought addiction during the shooting process, and all three women were instructed not to discuss it. That was ensured by Warner Brothers. The 4 years, the truth remained hidden, but not no longer. The Big Bang Theory nearly appeared very different. As Chuck Lorre and Bill Patty submitted the proposal to 006, their initial strategy omitted one female character. It was only Sheldon Leonard and a third man. 3 men who were all nerds in a scientific world, not a single woman. Back then, studios didn't believe that scientific comedy featured women might actually work. However, when they appeared it to test audiences, and their comments were there was a problem. The program felt too narrow, too flat. Thus, the author laid a female lead. Initially, that role was portrayed by Amanda Walsh. Her Katie was the character's name. Hard, snarky, and somewhat aloof. Examined, she was disliked by audiences. Her vitality charged with Sheldon and Leonard. While were expected to be kind and gregarious. Awkward executives at CBS weren't not convinced either. They believed Katie seemed cruel, even poisonous. The program before it started, it almost fell apart. However, rather than giving up, the authors everything was redesigned. They made Katie becoming Penny, and Kay was introduced Cuoco. That modification made all the distinction. Penny was entertaining, friendly, and warm. She introduced the human element. The show was necessary. She wasn't a researcher, but she made it easier for the audience to relate to researchers. Afterwards, the author's Bernadette included more female characters, as well as Amy. That changed the overall vibe of the performance. It was more than just nerdy men no more. It developed into a tale about love, friendship, and awkward social situations. Both sides. The program grew in size. The pressure also increased. In 2014, Johnny Gleeky, Jim Parsons, and Cuoco were making almost $1 million apiece. Episode. The rights to syndicate were more than $1 billion. A 302 commercial during the cost of the 2013 TO4 season was $326,260. NFL games come in second. With that type of funds at stake, image management turned into everything. Kay and Mayim, Bialik and Melissa Rauch sensed through it. They needed to remain likable, and even an off-screen slip-up could harm the brand. The strain became so great that seasons will see the 5 main actors reduced wages to allow Bernadette and Amy to receive pay parity. It demonstrated how the ladies had gained value, but they were also how much more difficult it was for them to continue to be in the spotlight. Prior to Amy Farrah Fowler gained popularity among fans, there was hesitancy. Executives at Cubs weren't certain that people would embrace a women neuroscientist as eccentric and as intelligent as Sheldon. They were afraid she might be too terrifying for viewers. However, that worry was unfounded. Bialik produced Amy as human, witty, and endearing. She and Melissa Rauch added vitality to the display. Amy was even awarded a Nobel Prize for narrative. Bialik received for Emmys herself. Suggestions. The audience didn't simply accept intelligent female scientists. In the background, there was one more twist. Johnny and Kay Cuoco playing Penny and Leonard. Gleeky had an actual romance in the early years of the program. It began covertly in the first season. Yes, Kay had a crush on Away, but Johnny failed to notice afterward. During a scenario being filmed in an elevator shaft with a Nordvana episode inhalation, they became aware of what evolved. They fell in love with one another. That day, however, they wanted no one to understand. They were concerned that it may shatter their contracts or destroy the performance. Thus, they retained it as silent. No public dates or clues. About that, they even employed covert messages to converse with one another. By the time they captured their initial kiss on camera in Theparatum of the Middle Earth, they had already kissed in person. That initial act, the trailer, was where the kiss took place. Thus, upon their eventual on-camera kiss, it wasn't merely a show. There were actual feelings that underlie it. Later, Kay stated that she felt both anxious and assured about her outfit for Halloween. That scene turned into only among the most thrilling scenes in early history of the Big Bang. Supporters sensed the chemistry, but was unaware of the truth. Explanation for this. Their relationship lasted nearly 2 years, but as of the end of 2009, while season 3 was airing, they subtly rebelled up. Then suddenly, their characters broke up as well. In episode 19, the recurrence of Wheaton Leonard and Penny. The time couldn't have been more perfect. Worse, capturing those experiences on camera, while it was difficult to deal with a true split. Later, Kay acknowledged that it was among the most difficult times in her life. She sobbed after filming in her dressing room. The catalyst is spaghetti. The feelings were too authentic. The authors were clueless about what was occurring. Yet they unintentionally wrote a conversation that reflected the couple's actual troubles in life. One episode features Penny opening up, discussing feelings of insecurity. Kay stated she thought the moment was real because Itik owed her private discussions by Johnny. Leonard's fears and anxiety regarding Penny's history also reflected Johnny's emotions at that moment. In some way, the authors were able to convey the emotional reality without ever being aware of the whole tale. It enhanced the performance's authenticity more credible. The distinction between fiction and reality became hazy. When Mayim Bialik came on board the fourth season of The Big Bang Theory, their remuneration was only $20,000 per show. Meanwhile, the major actors were making $200,000 apiece. It was more than a gap. The scene was in a canyon, and everyone essenced it. Blossom is already well known for Mayim, and having earned a doctorate in neuroscience, was introduced as a supporting role, but admired with her right away. Her Army, the character, played a significant role in the display. Still, she wasn't paid enough. Increasing significance. That disparity prodded genuine tension. It would require years and widespread public interest before her pay began to increase. Her long path to equitable pay was paved with difficult conversations behind closed doors. It was a note that even on one of the television's largest concerts, not everyone received the same treatment in the same way. Melissa Rauch had to deal with an even more difficult beginning when she entered as Bernadette in season 3. She was rewarded $1,500 each episode. That is the meaning of scale, that the absolute minimum in the industry. Her character quickly gained popularity. She turned into a fan favorite that is deeply ingrained in. However, her salary didn't increase as expected. Away. Despite becoming a regular, she was still making significantly less money than the others. Her salary increased gradually by $45,000, then $60,000, and then $100,000 each episode. By the show's conclusion, she was earning $500,000 every time. In only the last 48 episodes, she made $24 million. However, it wasn't an easy task. She had to battle her way up each season. It was an obvious illustration of how fairness is not always a prerequisite for success. Hollywood salary, even $1,000 Cuoco, the first stars, was not exempt. In season 2, she discovered that she was producing $50,000 less than Johnny and Jim Parsons' Glacky. They had $100,000, she had $50,000, and she was expected to be on par with them. That revelation resulted in some quite angry discussion. Kay put up a strong fight in by episodes in season 4 cost $200,000 each. She continued to ascend. $350,000 after that. By season 8, each episode, she eventually emerged as one of TV actresses with the highest salaries. Her whole income was about $150 million, but the compensation disparity at the beginning haunted her. It was an obvious instance of gender disparity, and it required brave reconciliation to resolve it. Season 11 headlines commended the lead actors for reducing their income by $100,000 in order to Melissa Rauch and Bialik might get increased. Although it appeared giving behind scenes, it wasn't completely voluntary. CBS was concerned about soaring expenses. Every one of the primary 5K, Cuoco, Johnny Gleeky, Jim Parsons, both Kunal Nair and Simon Helberg, were owning $1 million for each show. Bialik was at a mere $200,000 to maintain a variant participating in the last seasons. CBS decided the top 5 stars fell to $900,000 apiece. That made room for $500,000 for each show to increase Pollock and Roll to $450,000 each. Although it was basic, the PR was good. Budgetary calculations. In the absence of those cuts, the show may have fallen apart due to its own weight. It was a commercial decision. However, not all of the actors backed the increases. Jim Parsons, as stated by reports, was personally opposed to matching pay for Rauch and Bialik, who warned that it might create a hazardous precedent in the event when supporting performers on other programs began requesting the same thing. Producers may encounter significant issues. Hadn't discussed it in public, but those with knowledge of the show stated his worries generated even more backstage stress. In the end, the compensation scale modified and Rauch and Bialik received their increases. However, it was evident that money could even the closest casting should be divided. Off-screen, Bialik had to deal with her, and she told People magazine in 2009. Her family did not receive vaccinations. It didn't end there. In her 2012 parenting book, she discussed anti-vaccine sentiments. Also referenced contentious sources that produced significant issues during a period when fears of vaccines were already growing. Her words spread like wildfire. As epidemics of measles and other illnesses proliferate in places that were under-vaccinated, the backlash increase allowed as CBS became concerned. Quite concerned. A crisis management team was just hired must deal with the consequences. They possessed ATO safeguard $1 billion exhibition. The Alikta Rifter attempted to walk it back. In 2015 as well as once more in 2021, she claimed that all of her children are vaccinated, stating that she is in favor of vaccinations, although the damage remained. One public comment person, particularly one with a scientific degree, had become an emergency. Next arrived in 2017. The Me Too movement was blowing up in Hollywood, Women were being heard at last. Bialik, however, stepped straight back into controversy. She penned a New York Times opinion piece titled The Feminist Perspective in Harvey Weinstein's World. She mentioned her modest dress in it. Her timidity had protected her in Hollywood. She maintained that men were still entirely accountable for their behaviors, but the message was misinterpreted. It is often interpreted as victim blame. Detractors includes Gabrielle and Patricia Areta Union slammed her outrage on the scenes, and Warner the brothers started to get anxious. They vented about creating her persona based on the show in order to prevent more scandal. Later, Bialik expressed regret. What you're wearing and your actions don't shield you from attack. However, the harm was already done. Her run was almost over after that op-ed. On the theory of the Big Bang. Her remarks about it was not just Weinstein woke-cast a backlash. In the same opinion piece, she clarified that she wasn't compatible. Hollywood's ideals of beauty. She penned it as a result of her attire and pretended that she had never received a hotel invitation. Meeting rooms with influential guys. She referred to those decisions as self-defense. Another surge of rage was triggered by that. It seemed to be as saying that other women could have prevented mistreatment if they had the same options. Arquette patriciated that the harassment she experienced as a youngster. Others told heartbreaking tales. Not even the internet held back. Even despite Bialik's constant clarifications, it made no difference. Her picture took another severe blow. Even her background in science didn't protect her against criticism. She held a genuine doctorate in neuroscience. Her academic work was ingrained in her However, that legitimacy arrived also under fire. On social media, she made dubious claims regarding mental well-being. A few admirers and experts began interrogating her proficiency. People made note of the fact that she hadn't released any substantive studies following her doctorate. She had not been a teacher or employee in science for more than 10 years. When she discussed topics such as vitamins or according to detractors, she was neurodivergent. Spreading false information. On discussion boards such as users on Reddit argued over whether her degree no longer held any significance. It became evident a PhD does not imply that you are consistently correct. Additionally, for a public figure, even a minor error can cause scientific criticism. Cuoco had no idea how drastically her life will alter in only a few seconds. September was the month, 2010, and she was riding a horse in Los Angeles. What should have been a peaceful moment became a nightmare. She was thrown off by the horse. Next, in a terrifying turn, it attempted to leap over but fell directly onto her left leg. It was a vicious blow. Her bones broke, to the extent that they ripped through veskin. Her fibula and tibia were both broken. A complex fracture occurred, the sort that scares surgeons. At hospital, the situation became more reverie. Seriously. Physicians warned her that the leg must be amputated. Prior to procedure, she was required to sign a document that said she realized that she may awaken without it. That was the point at which Chuck Lorre, who founded the Big Bang Theory, claimed that it was the most terrifying period in the 12 years of theater play. She was fortunate an excellent orthopedic Stephen Lombardo, a surgeon, happened to be accessible. He worked. In 12 hours, her limb was saved by that speed. She shocked everyone by leaving in a boot after only 2 weeks. She just missed 2 of the show's episodes. Even despite the mental and physical suffering lasted considerably longer. Cuoco rotated Theskers into a symbol of her resilience. Her problems didn't stop there either. Although she was recuperating, but there was still another issue began to develop. One that remained concealed from admirers. Cuoco started to rely on the SI was prescribed painkillers. The suffering was genuine, but the fog that came after. She started to slur her words. Editors had to put in more time cleaning up her lines to ensure that they had sounded correct. In fact, they re-recorded audio to conceal what was happening. Nobody knew what she was going to do off the set. Through the program had to remain humorous. Penny needed to remain alert. Behind however, Cuoco was in a peaceful struggle with her medication, her pain, and under pressure to act as though everything was alright. The production crew protected keeping her out of the spotlight while maintaining Thepia undamaged. The audience was unaware of what it took to maintain the flow. After several years, a different type of storm occurred in 2016. From the general population this time. July 4th, Cuoco shared a picture of herself and her dog sitting on a flag of the United States. She most likely found it adorable. The internet didn't concur. The reaction was immediate and enormous. She was accused of disregarding the flag. She removed the post and expressed regret, but by that time the hatred had gotten out of control. She began to get threats of death. They were sufficiently grave that the FBI became engaged. The federal agents kept an eye on the situation and eventually provided her with protection. It was a severe reminder of the rapidity of public opinion turn and the potential for danger. A simple picture became a danger to her. Security. Prior to her complete recovery, her personal life began after that. Creating news stories. December 2013, Cuoco wed Ryan, a tennis player. After only 6 months of dating. Swinging. Everything seems ideal at first, but by September of 2015, she submitted a divorce petition. The moment wasn't taboo. Season 8 of the show was about to premiere. Ratings were crucial. There was pressure to maintain a clean image. According to reports, Sweating had developed a addiction to painkillers and household items. It had grown dark. Cuoco's legal team worked quickly. Her prenuptial agreement was solid. That safeguarded her fortune of $45 million. Sweating left with just a little agreement. No spousal assistance, only Aslan's departure. Everything was done with swiftness and quiet. Even her co-stars helped maintain the set's normalcy. However, that strain to maintain her flawlessness while she's there was a huge breakdown in marriage. A scandal could have resulted from the divorce. Rather, it was concealed behind actions and excellent timing. At the same moment, another event was taking place. There was something on the television that nobody saw. In the 5th and 6th seasons, Cuoco was copying covertly with an eating disorder. Cheers. The pressure to have a specific appearance, in addition to the strain of the show, forced her into a risky pattern. However, the backstage crew took back in. Designers of costumes, puffed her garments, layered textiles, and labor-employing film teams to conceal the modifications in her physique. They selected and modified shots, viewpoints that would deflect attention. Everything was planned. The objective was to maintain Penny's uniform appearance, while preserving the privacy of Kaley. She was quietly receiving assistance, falling behind in recovery scenes while continuing to appear at LBA. No headlines, no press, just a hidden conflict, and a group effort doing everything they could to help her without revealing it to the world. Cuoco had experienced more than just admirers. Never found out. From nearly losing her limb to fighting the addiction to painkillers, confronting danger of death, hurrying through a peaceful separation and concealing an eating disorder on film, she continued to appear. The program content, but at a price. Notoriety, a risk. Additionally, for the female members of the show, the attention arrived with a horrifying cost. Cuoco performed. Penny had to deal with something trembling. Anybody her house was broken into by a man. He felt that Penny should be with him, not the night. It was more than just a spooky message. It truly was a break-in. After then, private protection had to be hired. According to reports, Cuoco was developing a the entire book. For 12, she had played Penny seasons, and publishers were providing a large sum of money to reveal what actuality took place behind the scenes. From behind closed doors, everyone wants to fight over money and feuds. The juicy specifics. But Warner Brothers stepped in fast. Their legal team minded Kay of a provision hidden deep in her contract. It stopped her from talking about something that could affect studio's image, cast drama, pay discussions, or even interpersonal conflicts. The clause was unchangeable. No book could proceed without the studio's approval, each and every word. Although Kay possessed a solid connection with Warner Brothers and has inked a new production contract in 2025 with them, she was still barred by law. Admirers waited for her explanation, but it never arrived. Whatever she wrote is no hidden behind guarded files and attorneys. It wasn't just Kay who had to cope with clumsy post-show issues. Bialik played Amy and became up in a dispute following her selection to co-host Jeopardy after the passing of Alex Trebek in 2020. Les Kent Jennings took center stage. Mayim's session with her tension between the audience and the behind closed doors. The majority of folks was aware that there had been issues with CBS brewing for many years. When the Big Bang occurred, theoretically Mayim had battled for a salary and didn't hesitate to take on difficult tasks. The choices made by the network, that audacity stuck in the heads of some executives. When the time came to choose a full-time Jeopardy host, those old resentments in a came back. There were rumors that few CBS insiders resisted Thea. By December 2023, was taken away suddenly. By August 22, for her existence was cleansed of thubicide for the show. The formal explanation, the consistency, was what the producers desired. However, behind that courteous justification, many people thought Cups merely desired her departure. What was slated to be her next significant phase became yet another agonizing reminder. Hollywood always remembers who says what up. Melissa Rauch also had difficulties following the show's conclusion. Although hers were a distinct, her role was that of Bernadette, the small powerhouse with a piercing voice and fiery disposition. The part made her renowned. She was trapped, too. Casting agents were unable to look past Bernadette. Even Melissa was a talented actress, but Hollywood continued to give her the Sammy kind of role. The loud, controlling wife. Critics also took notice. Numerous people stated the calming, eccentric Bernadette had gradually transited into something cruel. By last season's, Melissa made an effort to shake the picture. She played the lead in a gritty independent movie titled The Bronze, and subsequently played the starring role in the NBC revival of Night Court. But the effect of Bernadette remained for years. It wasn't merely a way she was unable to wear the label get, a way she was talented. But it took a lengthy viewing period for casting director sure as anything else. Then the notion it rekindled fan excitement. A reunion. CBS and Warner Brothers desired a Big Bang Theory special. It was in motion till money halted it in its tracks. In the first season, the forevermore actors, Johnny Glicky, Jim Parsons, Simon Connell Neer and Cuoco Helberg earned $1 million per year. Episode May and Melissa, who joined a thrifter, were significantly decreasing, approximately $175,000 up to $200,000. Their salary eventually increased up to $425,000 up to $500,000, but only after the 5 initial participants took argued to balance the situation. Regarding the reunion, the women want complete equality. Melissa and Mayim made the same demand as their male co-stars' salaries. They claimed that their responsibilities had increased, just considered crucial, but the studio wasn't ready to accept those conditions. The negotiations broke down. The get-together was suddenly cancelled. It lacked originality, discrepancies, or scheduling issues. It was compensated. Gender salary disparities once more shot down anything that deeply appeals to fans. And once more, the battle for Hollywood's equality was far from over. However, the darkest the cast did not make any revelations. The crew was the source of them. Recently, lawsuits were filed in secret for years against those involved in the production of the show group. Accusations, intimidation, and a poisonous workplace. The precise no information has been made public. Court records are sealed, and all parties array is strictly prohibited from disclosing agreements. However, several insiders have verified that the court cases are accurate. Bialik made a broader statement regarding poisonous cultures on television sets, stating that it was common for women years ago in writer rooms to be shouted at. She did not blame the Big Bang for anything. Idea, but her remarks caused many people to make the connection. Regardless of she didn't personally witness anything, the lawsuits raised significant issues. Behind the scenes, there is currently no court. Public choices have been made. However, the damage is done. Previously regarded as a humorous sitcom with a lot of nerdy jokes, and there are now shadows in sweet moments. Behind it, shadows of untold tales, compensation, disagreements, missed opportunities, and ogle barriers that have yet to appear.